All right. Welcome in, everyone. We're diving deep today, folks, into the world of Australian real estate investing.
That's right.
We're going to be uncovering all sorts of fascinating nuggets from this awesome guide we have.
Ultimate guide to investing in Australian real estate. It's fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah. The ultimate guide to investing in Australian real estate. So I know you're out there. I know you're listening. I know you're interested in this.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're going to try to make this really engaging. We're not going to bore you with the basics. This is a deep dive.
100%.
So we're going to assume you know a little something about real estate.
Yeah.
But we're going to take it to the next level. We're going to be looking at what makes the Australian market so unique. We're going to talk about some of the hottest investment spots right now. And most importantly, we're going to equip you with the knowledge and the tools to actually build a profitable real estate portfolio down under.
Down under, that's right.
So first things first, let's get lay of the land.
Right.
We got to understand this market before we jump in head first.
100%. And the guide really emphasizes that, doesn't it? It's like you can't just jump in blindly.
Absolutely.
You need to know what you're dealing with. What are the forces that are driving this market?
Yeah. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
it's not just like buying a house down the street, right? This is a whole different animal.
It's another country, right? Like it's
Yeah.
a whole different set of rules, different regulations. And I think what's really interesting, the guide highlights this, is that, the Australian market is really influenced by some pretty unique factors. Things like immigration patterns,
Oh, yeah.
infrastructure development,
Mhm.
and even like, the global commodities market, things that you might not even think about when you're looking at real estate in, say, North America or Europe.
Right, right. And I was really intrigued by that section on government policies
Yeah.
and how they really can sway things down there.
Yeah.
Things like incentives for first-time home buyers or regulations on foreign investment.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really seems like you got to have your finger on the pulse of those policies if you want to make smart investment decisions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so let's say we've done our homework. We've got a handle on the market dynamics. We're ready to start looking at some properties.
Okay.
How do we find those hidden gems,
Right.
the ones with that high ROI potential? Where do we even begin?
So this is where it gets really exciting because the guide actually encourages us to think outside the box a little bit.
Ooh, I like that.
Right. So we all know Sydney, we all know Melbourne,
Yeah, those are the big ones.
big players. But the guide says, look, those are obviously great markets, but they're also very competitive. They're very expensive.
Okay.
So maybe, think about looking at some regional areas, some of those up and coming cities that are experiencing really strong growth, but haven't quite hit that peak price point yet.
Okay, any specific examples that they mention in the guide? Like where should we be looking?
They highlighted a couple of places that I thought were really interesting. Brisbane, for example,
Okay.
up in Queensland. It's got a really strong economy, beautiful weather,
Right.
and the property prices are still relatively affordable compared to like a Sydney or a Melbourne.
Interesting.
And then Perth,
Perth.
go on the West Coast. Again, strong economy driven by the mining industry.
I got yours.
Exactly. Lots of potential for growth. So those are just a couple of ideas, but the key takeaway is don't be afraid to explore.
Okay, I'm ready to explore. Let's talk about different property types now.
Okay.
You got your apartments, you got your houses, you got your commercial real estate. Does the guide, does it lean towards one type or the other?
It's really interesting because it doesn't necessarily say, hey, this is the best type of property to invest in. It really encourages you to think about your individual goals, your risk tolerance, and your investment strategy.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, for example, if you're looking for something that's relatively low maintenance,
Yeah.
steady rental income,
Right.
maybe an apartment in a city center would be a good option. But if you're thinking long term, you're thinking capital growth.
Okay.
Maybe a house in a suburb that's up and coming could be a better choice.
Right. So it's all about aligning your strategy with the property type.
Exactly.
Okay. Now let's talk about the not so fun part, but the very important part.
Yeah.
Financing. I remember when I first started dabbling in real estate, I was like, what is all this jargon?
It is a whole language, right?
And I'm sure Australia, it's got its own unique wrinkles.
It does. It does.
What are some of the key things that we should be aware of when it comes to getting a loan for an investment property in Australia?
Well, one of the first things that the guide really emphasizes is that you need to have a really strong financial profile
Oh, of course, yeah.
if you want to get the best loan terms
Right,
and the best interest rates. So that means having good credit,
right.
having a stable income, having a good deposit saved up, all those things. So, if you're thinking about investing in Australian real estate, start working on your finances now.
Start getting your ducks in a row.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, in terms of specific loan options, there are a few that the guide mentions. One that I thought was particularly interesting was this idea of an interest-only loan.
Interest only.
Yeah, interest only. So basically, for a set period of time,
Okay.
you're only paying the interest on the loan.
Right.
You're not paying down the principal.
Okay. And what's the advantage of that? Why would someone want to do that?
Well, it can be really helpful for investors who are looking to maximize their cash flow in the short term
Ah,
because your repayments are going to be lower.
I see.
But, and this is a big but, it's really important to understand that eventually you're going to have to start paying down that principal.
Right. You can't
Exactly.
just keep kicking the can down the road forever.
Exactly. And when you do,
Right.
your repayments are going to go up.
Okay.
So it's not a magic solution.
Right. There's no free lunch.
No free lunch.
Okay. So we've navigated the financing world. We've got our loan.
We're good.
We found our amazing property.
Yeah.
Now, how do we manage this thing?
Okay.
I'm talking about maximizing that rental income, keeping those expenses in check.
Hmm?
Any golden nuggets of wisdom from the guide on property management?
Yeah, there's a couple of really practical tips that I thought were worth highlighting. One is to really focus on properties that have low vacancy rates.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Right, because if you've got a property that's sitting empty,
You're losing money.
you're losing money. So the guide suggests doing your research, looking at the average vacancy rates in different areas.
Right.
And that can give you a good indication of how stable the rental income is likely to be.
So it's not just about finding a nice property.
Exactly.
It's about finding a nice property in the right market
In the right location.
where people actually want to rent.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a great tip. And then, of course, there's always the legal and tax side of things, which can be a bit of a headache.
Oh, yeah.
Any advice from the guide on that front?
The guide emphasizes, just like with financing, the importance of seeking professional advice from qualified experts.
Oh, always a good idea.
Especially in this case, tax specialists who are familiar with Australian property investment laws.
Because I imagine there's some unique quirks there.
Oh, yeah. For example, they talk about this concept called negative gearing.
Negative gearing. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more. What's that all about?
So basically, negative gearing allows investors to offset any rental losses
Oh, okay.
against their other income, like their salary, for tax purposes.
Interesting.
So it can be a really powerful strategy for reducing your tax liability. But again, it's complex. You need to understand the rules.
Yeah, you don't want to mess around with the tax man.
Exactly.
Exactly. So we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
We've found the property, we've financed it, we're managing it, we're hopefully making some money.
Fingers crossed.
Now, let's talk about building that real estate portfolio, growing that wealth over the long term. What are some strategies that the guide highlights for creating a resilient portfolio that can kind of ride out those market fluctuations, the ups and downs?
I think this is where we start thinking really strategically about our investments, right?
Right.
And the guide emphasizes the importance of diversification.
Ah, the classic diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. Exactly. So, instead of just buying multiple properties of the same type in the same area, spread your risk a little bit.
Okay, how do we do that? What does that look like in practice?
Well, you might consider investing in different property types.
Okay.
So, maybe you have some residential properties, maybe you have a commercial property, or you might diversify geographically.
Right.
So instead of just focusing on one city, you might invest in a couple of different cities.
Gotcha.
Or even, a city in a regional area.
Okay. Mix it up a little bit.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, the other thing that the guide talks about
Yeah.
is understanding property cycles.
Yes, the cycle.
The ups and downs, the booms and busts.
How do we use that knowledge to our advantage?
Well, it's all about timing, right?
Okay.
If you can identify when the market is at a peak and when it's at a trough,
Right.
you can buy low
And sell high.
and sell high. That's the dream, isn't it?
That's the dream.
But it's not easy.
Right.
Predicting these cycles can be really, really challenging.
It's like trying to time the stock market.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the guide's advice is don't get too caught up in trying to perfectly time the market.
Okay.
Instead, focus on having a long-term vision.
Right.
Be prepared to ride out those ups and downs.
And be patient.
Be patient, exactly.
Okay, so this guide, the ultimate guide, it's all about Australian real estate. But Are there any kind of universal takeaways here? Things that investors, regardless of where they are in the world, can kind of take to the bank?
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, investing is investing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The principles are the same.
Okay.
So whether you're investing in Australia or anywhere else, you need to do your research.
Right.
You need to understand the market. You need to have a solid strategy.
Be smart.
Be smart
Be patient.
and be patient.
Okay. Well, I think that's a fantastic note to end on.
Yeah, yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about the unique aspects of the Australian market. We've talked about finding those hidden gem properties, navigating financing, managing your investment, building that portfolio.
And everything.
It's been a whirlwind tour, but hopefully you out there listening have gleaned some valuable insights from this ultimate guide.
Absolutely. And I think that the key thing to remember is that knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
The more you know about the market, oh yeah, the better equipped you'll be to make smart decisions.
Informed decisions.
Informed decisions.
All right. Well, on that note,
Yeah.
happy investing, everyone.
Happy investing.